Welcome back to the Titanium Hangar. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well today. Today I want to talk to you about a concept I've been thinking about since 2019. Finally was able to put a name to it, but it is a fringe collector. There's actually two types of fringe collectors. You might be surprised. You might be a type 2 fringe collector when we get into talking about this. I didn't really notice this until I saw MP44 come out, and we will talk about that. But MP44 was kind of what got this concept on my radar and surprised me about a few things. But we're going to talk about fringe collectors and how it's good and bad for the community coming up. Alright, so quickly, what is the definition of the word fringe? It is on the border or outer edge of an area or group. So this is kind of a collector that has a couple of toes in collecting Transformers, but not a whole foot. Definitely has a full foot out of it. So there's a lot of reasons for this, but for the most part, a fringe collector is somebody that is interested in maybe some main characters or specific characters and doesn't really look at collecting Transformers daily or weekly or probably not even monthly, but when a big event happens, they like to be part of it. Now that big event was MP44. That was back in 2019, and I remember looking for videos on YouTube and seeing so many people I've never seen before, YouTubers I've never seen before, that had quite a following that would either review this or talk about this, and it was kind of surprising. For a while I was thinking, oh, we got new Transformer reviewers out there I never heard of, and then looked at this, the only thing Transformers they talk about all month. And so with that, that's part of being a Type 1 fringe collector, is somebody that's only in it for the big things, big draws like this, but it is Optimus Prime, and he draws in quite a crowd. Now, most of these fringe collectors will collect several different toy lines. So let's say that it's a Marvel collector that wants to get an Optimus Prime and a Megatron to put on their shelf, and that makes a whole lot of sense. But I got to put it in sense that makes sense to me. I see a lot of collectors do this with other toy lines too. There are collectors out there that aren't deep into Masters of the Universe and might just go get themselves a He-Man and a Skeletor, call it a day, put it on a shelf, or put it on one of those shelves that's kind of just like an 80s homage shelf. But they'll do that with their Optimus Primes and Megatrons also. I see that with Ramen Toy, where these Centurions sell out. Well, 80s Commanders sell out. But the people that aren't deep into collecting Centurions don't want all of the other characters that would be involved in the weapon systems. They just want the main three, put it on a shelf, don't want anything else, don't spend any more money on it, and are very happy, though, to have these. Maybe a Batman and a Superman. So kind of this is what I'm talking about, is people in other collecting areas that just want to get an Optimus Prime and a Megatron, and that's why those sell so well. And I really was thinking that we're sitting over here with a bunch of Transformer collectors that have 23 or 41 Optimus Primes. Now, there are collectors like that, but I don't think that's the average collector. I think that's a very small percentage that will have every single Optimus Prime made. And so the reason that companies can have the confidence of putting out an Optimus Prime and it sells well is because these fringe collectors will jump in and buy it. Maybe Power Master is the one Optimus Prime that some fringe collector that collects G.I. Joe Classified wants to have this because that's what they had as a kid. That would make some sense to these fringe collectors supporting something like this. But you know, Magic Square has continually put out Optimus Primes. And so it's a positive for the community that there's going to be a new Optimus Prime coming out so that people don't have to shell out $500 for one on the secondary market or the aftermarket. But that also can start to become a negative. Although we've seen a bunch of Optimus Primes in the Masterpiece, and we have more coming, and like 2 more announced every week, we don't see every character get that treatment. And if you're in this collecting community and you want to have all of these, and then you kind of get into this situation where you don't have a Megatron. And maybe you don't want the MP36. Maybe you want to see more competition, but MP36 dead stopped Masterpiece Megatrons, and Magic Square could have made one, could have been successful. That would have sold to fringe collectors also. Don't know why they don't. These fringe collectors that are just in it for some big names aren't going to be helping the sales numbers of, say, these guys, the X-Transbots, Fury, and these figures, the Runabout and Runamuck, are getting into the obscure. They're getting into figures that are sort of righting a G1 wrong, in a way, because they're actually getting made with a proper look and aesthetic to them and size and scale versus what we got with the G1 where they just kind of flip up and they don't really look like anything. But these are something that collectors that are deep into Transformers are getting excited for. These type of Fringe collectors wouldn't have this one here ever get made, and this one is the Metagate Drift. And this is something that collectors that have been collecting a long time would like to purchase something because it's different. We're going to get into that here in just a bit. So this is an example of a quintessential Type 1 Fringe collector of Transformers. This is Robo from the Foosh, and he generally talks about Marvel stuff and a little bit of everything, just a little bit of everything. But when something Transformers pops up, something big, he likes to talk about it. Now, I found out about Foosh because somebody said I was copying him. Now, I'm nothing like Robo with Foosh. He's a good dude, but I am not a guy with a beard in front of a camera. I got a goatee, and I'm behind the camera. It's more of a Van Dyke. We're splitting hairs about facial hair, but Robo evidently has done something with an Optimus Prime. So this is one of those things where you're going to see collectors that don't collect Transformers or even talk about Transformers every week talk about something when it's big or an event that comes along that they want to be part of, which is this, evidently the Super 7 Optimus Prime. But I'm thinking like the next Masterpiece, Megatron, or something along those lines would be something that maybe Robo would be into. At minimum, talk about, but probably pick one up and check it out. I'd like to see him do a Masterpiece review. I don't know if he has or not. I also see these kind of Type 1 collectors jump in, and they might collect something along the line like this Studio Series Dinobots. These are so good, and they're just in the same proximity of where you are looking at your Marvel Legends, and you're like, those look good. Well, they used to be able to look at them and say those look good. They can't actually see the figures anymore, so they probably have no idea. But this is something I see. I see people collecting the Studio Series ones of these. And quick side note, they're reissuing Slag or Slug and Sludge, which Sludge makes no sense because he's still on Walmart shelves, but those are both getting a reissue, so they're up for pre-orders at various places. Should be out like next March or something along those lines. But if you're interested in those, but I do see a lot of Fringe collectors do teams or just whatever they seem to like and support it well. Now, what I would call a Type 2 Fringe collector is a collector that collects Masterpiece Transformers, but has been doing it for so long that they have a representation of every character and don't really feel like they have to keep up with the Joneses. They don't have to swap out. They don't have to buy the newest, latest, and greatest. And in a lot of cases, don't really feel like the newest, latest, and greatest fits in their collection. So this is the Type 2 Fringe collector. They have a foot out of the collecting circle or the collecting group and barely have a foot in, simply because they've already amassed a great collection and they don't need to stay on top of it every day. They probably still watch videos and reviews and are part of it on the sidelines. But that makes them a Fringe Type 2 collector. Nothing wrong with that at all, and most of those collectors don't want to jump in on the new Optimus Primes. See, the Type 2 Fringe collector that I am allocating this name to, this is a collector that doesn't really feel like we need all these different Optimus Primes that are out there. And I hear that all the time. I see it in my comments. I hear it in my comments that people do not want to have a 500th Optimus Prime. They would like to see something a little bit more on the obscure side. They would like to see something like, Punch Counter Punch, which should be coming soon. I heard it was coming this month, but it's coming very soon. But a lot of these collectors want something new. They clamor for something new. Like I said, we kind of get back to this Metagate, and this is something new. This is something different. And so with that, something like this Drift is not going to appeal to the Marvel collector that occasionally buys an Optimus Prime and a Megatron, or has bought an Optimus Prime Megatron and that's all they need. They wouldn't be really interested in this. So the first type of Fringe collector wouldn't help support a more obscure collector. But that's really kind of where we see these Type 2 Fringe collectors step up. Getting new figures that we've never gotten before is a lot of fun and it's exciting, but there's still not a huge market for it. But I gotta say there's a bigger market for new characters and new figures that haven't been made before today, more than there was even in 2014. 2014 was kind of the good old days of collecting, and so much stuff was going on back then. So much stuff was still new. So many characters had never been made before. Now that we have made the vast majority of characters, there's more or less rehashing old characters again by every company, and they're cannibalizing themselves, but getting new characters occasionally is a lot of fun, and that's where these Fringe collectors come in. But now we have other things like Mod Fans. Mod Fans, this is going to be in the news too, so you're getting a little early preview, but Mod Fans is coming out with somehow, I don't understand it, a Legends scale figure. I don't believe it's really going to be Legends scale, but it says in the information it's Legends scale figure that's going to be a head for Fortress Maximus, the reissue Fortress Maximus. And I really do feel like stuff like this is probably going to be closer to chug scale, but the information says 4 inches. But probably something along the lines like this is something that's going to be supported by more of these Type 2 Fringe collectors that have been collecting a long time and really want something new. We don't see very many of these figures, and we don't see much for Cerebros. And when it comes to Mod Fans, they're out there taking risks with the ruler and the roller. Now with this one, I don't think this is a risk at all. I think it's going to sell really well. But I also think what they've shown us with the ruler and roller, they're going to repaint this a lot. We will finally get a US painted version, but I wished it was Masterpiece scale. I don't have control over that, but still looks really cool and promising. So whether you're a hardcore Masterpiece Transformer collector, or you're a Fringe collector, or some people would say, no, Mike, those are just casual collectors. Well, I think I've kind of defined the defining lines on those. But whether you are in any of those categories, it's still fun to collect and still exciting when new figures come along. But hopefully it's new characters and not rehashing old ones. And I just hope that new companies that make new characters get the support they need to be encouraged to continue making more figures, and that would be good for the collecting community. But what do you think about this concept? Where do you stand? Where do you lie in this collecting spectrum here in 2023? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and Titanium Hanger out.